this is JT. Welcome to Bodyweight Strength. In this video, what I'm going to do is give you guys an update on my own personal way of eating. The last one I did was 6 weeks or so ago, and at that point I was 7 months carnivore, and that was my initial review. So this will be my updated review, and since that time, the only change that I've really made is I started eating a little bit of garlic and chipotle peppers in my ground beef a couple of times a week. So where I started out in the beginning, beef and water, then I went to a robust selection of animal products, and now I've added a very small amount of plant matter back in. That makes me not strict carnivore, but I don't care about terms or titles. So, you know, if seasoning my foods makes me not carnivore, that's totally okay. And the reason is that for me, eliminating plants from my diet was done because I was having skin issues, some gastrointestinal issues, and those things cleared up. The small amount of plant matter I've added back in have not bothered me or aggravated anything, and so I will likely continue with a little bit of garlic and the seasonings in my ground beef. The reason for that is that I'm not any worse for the wear. Like, I don't see any negative effects to it, and it makes my ground beef infinitely more enjoyable. And so if I'm going to be eating this way, for example, for the next 60 years, I'm willing to trade off. Maybe I'm only eating 99.9% of the benefits. Theoretically, garlic could be benefiting me. I mean, there's a lot we don't know, but even if that small amount of plant matter is theoretically not as good as if I left it out, the taste of my ground beef is so much better. I'm willing to make that trade. You've got to basically think for yourself. You've got to make your own decisions. I don't suggest you eat the way I do because that's the way I eat, or eat the way anybody else does just because that's the way they eat. I suggest you do your own research, test things on yourself, see how you feel, and do what you feel is best for you based on making up your own mind. So I've added that small amount of plant matter back in. Aside from that, I am still eating all animal-based foods. And the reason I wanted to do this update is I wanted to talk about carnivore, keto, and some common sense, okay? Carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet, okay? It's a type of a ketogenic diet, because a ketogenic diet just means a diet with macronutrient ratios that increase ketone production or put you in a ketogenic state. There's some variance over what a ketogenic state is, but about 0.5 millimolar, if you were to measure blood ketone levels, 0.5 or 0.6 is often considered ketogenic. The reason that that's important is the reason I was keto before I was carnivore. The reason that I will stay keto even if I one day am not carnivore, and I'm not dogmatic. If some studies come out, some data comes out, makes me think that I really need to put some plant food back in for specific nutrient deficiencies or something like that, I would totally do it. I'm not trying to be dogmatic or think I know everything, because I certainly don't. But basically, the reason I was already ketogenic before carnivore, and of course, as carnivore, am still ketogenic, and if I'm ever not carnivore, I will still stay ketogenic, is because a ketogenic diet, a diet with ratios set up to increase ketone production, I believe has anti-aging, health and wellness benefits. It's not about fat loss for me. It's not about being lean or any of that stuff, because I can lose fat and be lean eating carbs. What it's about for me is encouraging beta-hydroxy butyrate production for the potential anti-aging benefits. And that's the main message I kind of wanted to convey with this update, is that there are multiple ways to increase ketone production. And one of the drivers of the positive health changes people see with carnivore, and there's more than one, it's not the only one, but increased beta-hydroxy butyrate production is one of them. A carnivore diet is a very low carb diet, and it encourages increased ketone production. Okay, a traditional ketogenic diet that most of you guys probably think about when you think keto, obviously, is very low carbohydrate, higher fat. As a carnivore diet is generally higher fat. The biggest difference between the two, carnivore diet usually is higher protein than a ketogenic diet. And in being higher protein, people tend to see better body composition changes with a carnivore diet, partially because of that increased protein. Higher protein levels increase 24-hour energy expenditure. You end up burning more calories. You end up having a better or more favorable macronutrient distribution with regards to body composition on carnivore for most people. So that's why, one of the reasons why I think that even in myself, when I went carnivore, my protein intake increased significantly, my athletic performance went up, and my body composition improved. I think it's primarily because of the protein. With that being said, both diets increase beta-hydroxybutyrate, as does intermittent fasting. When you wake up in the morning and you haven't eaten, the longer you go without eating, or if you do, early time restricted feeding, you wake up and you eat sooner, but you cut food off sooner. What happens is the longer you go without food, the higher beta-hydroxybutyrate production becomes. So fasting, whether prolonged or intermittent, those are also tools to increase beta-hydroxybutyrate production. And many of the health benefits that you see from fasting are also seen in the ketogenic diet because partially beta-hydroxybutyrate. And another interesting thing is that caloric restriction, if you restrict calories enough, also increases beta-hydroxybutyrate production. And the thing that I find interesting about this is that when you look at laboratory animals, flies, worms, rats, they've done it in a bunch of different types of animals, caloric restriction has been shown an effective means of extending lifespan. And it's hypothesized that the same thing would be true in humans. Okay, caloric restriction increases beta-hydroxybutyrate. Fasting in animals has also been shown to extend lifespan. Fasting increases beta-hydroxybutyrate. Ketogenic diet enhances beta-hydroxybutyrate. So for me, these different dietary hacks or tools or whatever you want to call them, these different dietary approaches are different means for increasing ketone production. And that's not the only thing that's going on during these different dietary interventions. However, it is a common thread, and beta-hydroxybutyrate on its own has been shown to basically have downstream effects with regards to activating anti-aging genes and creating a favorable environment, upregulating endogenous antioxidants, some different things that you could speculate would be beneficial from an anti-aging perspective are associated with, or the downstream effects of, elevated beta-hydroxybutyrate levels. The reason I don't personally like to do extreme caloric restriction, and when you look at studies to increase beta-hydroxybutyrate to the levels where you would get it with a ketogenic diet, you're restricting calories like 40%, which is a ton. A 40% restriction from maintenance calories, I would wither away. My training would suffer, my strength would be gone. I would be trading strength and preservation of muscle mass, which are strongly correlated with human longevity, for caloric restriction to increase beta-hydroxybutyrate, which maybe could help with human longevity, although I'd be opening myself up for potential hip fractures and having a brittle body and some other things that could be bad for longevity. Hopefully that makes sense. The reason I opt for a ketogenic diet or ketogenic ratios from either carnivore or a more traditional ketogenic diet is that they allow me to maintain elevated beta-hydroxybutyrate levels, eating much closer to maintenance or even at maintenance. And I haven't tested a surplus of calories with testing my blood ketone levels to see where they fall, but I am going to do that. It's an experiment I've got coming up. But I have tested at maintenance calories and just below maintenance, and my beta-hydroxybutyrate levels are generally 0.7, 0.8 millimolar, right in there, meaning that I maintain a state of ketosis while eating at maintenance calories, which allows me to maintain or increase strength, which allows me to effectively maintain my muscle mass. So for me, the reason that I am still ketogenic in ratio, the reason I don't add carbs back in, is that I feel that a ketogenic diet, whether it's carnivore or standard ketogenic diet, I feel that a ketogenic diet offers me the best blend of potential anti-aging benefits, along with strength and hypertrophy progression, or at worst, maintenance. And as long as you go hypercaloric, as long as you eat a caloric surplus, you can build additional overall mass and scale weight on a ketogenic diet. It is possible, even if it were to be a little bit harder than eating carbs, it is possible. And in my mind, adding carbohydrate in, plus going hypercaloric, it's just not something I'm interested in personally, but it is something that I'll talk about. We'll go over how to set that up if that is something you want to do. My plan for the channel is to cover all this different stuff so that you can set your diet up to help you succeed with whatever parameters that happens to be for you. Again, this video was just me talking about why I still eat the way I do, why I stick to a low carbohydrate ketogenic ratio, why I don't add carbs back in, and yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with this review. If you have questions, if you want me to expand further on any of these topics, just sound off in the comments below, let me know. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, click subscribe, click the notification button so you are notified when I create new content. And thank you for bearing with me, and thank you for supporting Bodyweight Strength.